Hi, SAS listeners. Welcome back to Sexual Assault Survivor Stories, the SAS podcast. Coming to you from the Long Valley Studio in Washington, Utah, I'm your host, Dave Markel, and this is episode 201. Today, I'm bringing you the third and final part of my conversation with Hannah King. In parts 1 and 2, Hannah told us about being drugged and violently sexually assaulted outside of the United States, and how that single night and the following 3 weeks reached into her relationships, her role as a mother, and the life she once recognized as her own. This final episode is not a neatly wrapped conclusion in which every wound has healed. Hannah is still discovering who she is now and how to rebuild a life around something she never chose. There's extraordinary courage in telling your story while you're still living through its consequences. This is the final installment of our conversation, but it's not the end of Hannah's healing or the woman she is becoming. I'm picking up right where we left off with episode 200. Here's Hannah.
All the things that I did and that I said, I felt really gross about it because I continued to see this person for 3 fucking weeks. I don't know what would have happened. Who's to say? Statistics would say that there's a high probability that he could have killed me. That's still hard for me to believe, to be fully honest. No, I wasn't in that kind of danger. Probably another way that my brain wants to minimize still. That, and I think the things that I'm still not like, I can tell there's a little bit of this, you're being a little dramatic, is being able to confidently say that he was continuing to drug me, even though it's pretty clear that he was, and that my life was at risk, that I was actually in danger. Yes, I was in danger. I think I can acknowledge that, but that my life was at risk. I still don't feel like I can say that or believe that with conviction yet.
Can we talk about that? Or do you feel opposed to?
No, of course. I would welcome your opinion.
First, let me address something you've already said, and then we'll talk about some things that you've made implication about and may not completely understand. But first of all, acknowledging what you've already said is that you think he continued to drug you. Help me and the audience understand where that belief or suspicion comes from.
There was multiple other occasions where I lost chunks of time. Again, just went into, like, you just drank too much. I didn't preface this but saying, like, I do drink alcohol, but I haven't drinking in excess for a very long time. I've maybe gotten tipsy a few times and maybe drunk once or twice since having kids. My daughter's 14. No, probably a few times more than that, some weddings or whatever. Point being, I don't drink, typically 1 to 3 drinks max. Usually if I'm drinking, I like to enjoy the flavor of alcohol. I love the social aspect of it. I love the ritual of it, but I am not a big, heavy drinker. I've never had addictions. The last time I ever blacked out was in my late teens, early 20s, probably. I got that stuff out of my system young. That's not for me. And especially once I had kids, that was not, I just don't drink in excess.
Right. And I think there's a big difference between what you just said, enjoying the social aspect of it, enjoying the flavor, enjoying the camaraderie of having someone to drink with, and maybe even some of the feeling that alcohol brings on. But then there's those people who love the feeling of being totally smashed.
Yeah, I do not.
Right. And I think that's a lifestyle. I think that says volumes about what was going on here. That is not an aspect of your lifestyle, of your history, of your pattern that would say, well, of course, she's making herself vulnerable to this because she loves being smashed. No, that's not the case. And the case is, with these huge gaps of time missing and those feelings of what just happened, all of that speaks volumes to the fact that you were continually being drugged. And I think that's important for the audience to understand.
I will say that I was drinking more in Oaxaca than I typically do. I happen to love mezcal. as a spirit. I've always loved mezcal. So being in Oaxaca, where mezcal is, for those that don't know, tequila is made in Tequila, Mexico. Champagne is made in Champagne, right? So Oaxaca is where mezcal is made. And so not only is it the hub of where mezcal is made, it's like being in Napa Valley for wine. It's like you have everybody makes their own mezcal and everyone shares it. I had a friend who owned a gallery, and I walk in the middle of the day and he's like, Hannah, do you want a mezcal? So it's very much a part of their culture. And it's something that's, yes, people do, of course, drink mezcal and get drunk, but it's also, it's very much used in a ceremonial, sacred, kind of ritualistic way there.
Hmm.
So something that person in, no matter where you are, like inside of a gallery, even one of the things that any local will do is as soon as you pour a cup of mezcal for someone, everyone pours a little drop onto the ground. It's to give to your ancestors. So it's not just let's all drink, it's part of the culture. And it's, you can go to mezcal tastings everywhere. It's just the same way that you would go to wine tastings. And so you get to try all these different mezcals. I loved that. It was so cool to learn about the different mezcals, learn about how people made them. That was really interesting to me and fun, and I liked the taste, the flavors of it. That, and being someone who just happens to really enjoy mezcal, in combination with Dia de Muertos, there was a lot more drinking, fun party style. I was definitely drinking more than I typically do. One thing that I was aware of, though, is that mezcal is a very different spirit, even than tequila. And in my experience, even in the days where I drank more, like maybe we did a mezcal tasting, and one day we were invited to a palenque, which is basically like a farm slash distillery where mezcal is made. We were invited to this person's home, and they were having a big celebration with their whole community. And I definitely got drunk that night because we were drinking all day, because we're like drinking out of the distills. It's a big celebration. And I had been drinking a lot that day, a lot for me. And it was all day long. But I remember everything. I remember that day. I remembered everything. And yet my mind still, with this, I thought, oh, well, I just drank too much and I blacked out, because that was easier to believe. Any other time that I had drinking more, specifically that one day at the Palenque, remembering everything, it like didn't compute, it didn't add up, but it took me time to kind of think through and process that. But because I had been drinking more than my norm, I would say, I assumed, oh, you're just drinking a ton and you're a shitty mom who's blacking out and not remembering things. What's wrong with you? You're becoming a little bit alcoholic vibes, Hannah. For me, again, the brain will believe whatever it can make sense of, and that made more sense to me. There was multiple other occasions where I lost chunks of time. One in particular, I had asked him to take me home at midnight. We got into the car immediately. I didn't walk in the door to my house until 3. And I was really confused what happened. And I was like, what? I don't under how is it 3? The father of my kids was back by then. So I guess the backstory to this is he had come back from Guatemala. We were having a heavy conversation that day about kids and plans and school and all this stuff. And I think he probably sensed something was off with me. And at that point, I had gotten to a point of acknowledging I think I was drugged, but I couldn't conceive the idea that it was him that drugged me or his brother. And so he and I had this conversation. It got tense. I told him I think I was drugged. He got really shitty and reacted really upset at first, mad at victim blame, just got mad at me. Hannah, you need to be more careful, this and that. I lied to him. I told him I ended up at a friend's house because, again, I didn't want to say I was having a fling with this guy that he knew. I left to take a walk. We had resolved things, but I just was like, I'm going to go take a walk. Let's call the perpetrator, see. He texted me. He was getting off work and he's like, "What are you doing? Where are you going?" I was like, "I'm walking." "Come by the taqueria, have a mezcal with me." So I came by, we had one or two mezcals. And then my kid's dad was home with the kids and they were fine. Midnight rolls around and my son texts me and he's like, "Mom, I can't sleep." And I said, "Where's your papa?" He said he was sleeping. I said, "Do you want me to come home?" Because I wanted to help him and he said, "Yeah, I think I do want you to come home." So I told C, "I need to get home." We immediately got into the car. And then I didn't walk into the door until 3. And I remember feeling really bad because my son was asleep. My kid's dad was awake and mad at me. I remember just feeling it was another check mark of you're a shitty fucking mom because my son wanted me. And I, again, like he ended up falling asleep. And I didn't know that 3 hours had passed. I walked in the door and I was like, "Where is he? Is he okay?" I looked, he was asleep in the room. And I was like, "Oh," and I kind of just felt that like mama guilt. His dad was up and he was just kind of laying into me. "What the fuck, Hannah? Where were you? What's going on? Where have you been? It's 3 a.m." I was slurring my words. I couldn't talk to him. "I can't do this right now." Again, that kind of apathy. I just was like, "I don't care that you're mad at me. Why are you so upset? Leave me alone. It's 3 a.m. What?" I was kind of like, "Wait, what do you mean it's 3 a.m.?" I was very confused. I think I was probably stumbling. I was slurring my words. I was trying to talk to him and I couldn't keep my eyes open. And he was just like, "What the fuck is going on with you?" I remember just shutting the conversation down. And I was just like, "I'm so tired. Let's talk about this tomorrow. I'm fine. It's not that big of a deal." I believe that we were in his car this whole time. I think we were probably in front of my house for 3 hours. I don't know, I guess. But I just remember my face, my cheeks, my mouth, my chin. It just felt like it had been rubbed raw. It felt like it had been in a suction cup, like it had just been sucked on, or I don't know what had happened to me, but it hurt. And I had mysterious cuts on my body. And I was just kind of like, what happened? And what happened to those 3 hours? And was I just like making out with him in the car? I told him to take me home right away, and he did. But then I remember getting close to my house and then finally walking in the door. And there's just this chunk of time I don't remember. I maybe drink a little bit of mezcal, but there's just this haziness, this fogginess, this like, what happened? A lot of other instances where I think I was probably drugged less because initial assault, I lost about 8 hours of time. I think that day in the car was the 3 hours was probably the other big chunk of time. And then there was other times where I couldn't even tell you now. There's just the whole time at this point, like now is hazy. There's a lot. I remember there was other specific instances at the time that I was, "That's just weird." And I just don't remember. And again, I just kind of put it under the category of, I guess you drank too much mezcal. You're just drinking a lot. I have one video of me. I don't know why I was taking of it. It's a couple seconds long, but I took a video of myself and I look so, it's hard for me to look at because it's like when someone is super drunk and their eyes are all bloodshot and barely open. And I don't think I drank that much, but I was not there. It does seem like the times that he drugged me were times where he was just a little bit more rough with my body and I had more bruises. Another instance that I was not drugged, it was the next time that I saw him after the initial assault. It was the first time that we got together. It was in the morning when my kids were at school and we met up again for the first time. And it was quote unquote consensual sex, but not consensual. Knowing what I know now, it doesn't feel accurate to me to say that any of it was actually consensual. I could say that that was all some version of me being raped because I was not in my right mind, or maybe there's another word like coercion. I don't know, but it just, to me, it doesn't feel right to say that I was consensually dating this person or consensually having sex with this person. I was thinking that that's what it was. But I met up with him at his place the second time that we got together. I was fully sober. It was the morning. I remember this one moment. His face was between my legs and he bit my thigh. And it was so hard. Had a normal response that someone would have of, ow. I wasn't expecting it. It was different than a love nibble. It was a very hard bite. I had a typical response that someone would have, and I kind of jumped. My body had a like, ow, that hurt. And he shot his face up so quickly. And he had this look on his face that at the time I thought, oh, he's thinking, oops, I accidentally bit her too hard. And it was a look of concern. Thinking back on it now, I can picture it through a different lens and see that it was more so a look of fear of, oh shit. And I don't know. This is just what I could assume is that it seems as though he liked a drugged body or a not as present human, or at least me. I don't know if he does this, if this is his thing on a regular or not, but he wanted me to be a little less present and in my body so he could be rougher with me and I wouldn't have the same response. I wouldn't have the same reaction that one would have because that look on his face, it was like fear. It was like he had this, uh-oh, am I going to get found out? And I just assumed that it was, oops, I bit her too hard and I'm concerned, is she okay? And that spot ended up leaving a very defined, significant bite mark bruise on my thigh. He had a way of manipulating my sense of reality and he curated it to what he wanted me to believe. He said things like, well, if you'd remembered last night, then you would know. Yeah, again, at the time, I was ashamed that I drank too much. Believe it or not, I played it off that I remembered parts of the night because I went into people pleasing. Also, I didn't want him to feel bad that a night with him wasn't memorable. And so I pretended like I remembered the night. I pretended that I remembered being with him, and I remembered nothing. The only thing that I remember of the night is this one moment of feeling the sensation of pain on my belly. I don't really have the any visuals at all. I just felt it was like it's like when you're in a dream and you feel a feeling. I felt the sensation of pain on my belly, which is accurate. I have bruises on my belly and I couldn't do anything about it. I felt the pain, but I couldn't move my body or do anything to make the pain go away. And that was the only moment that I remember until then waking up. I was trying to put pieces together of what happened. How did I end up at his house and whatever? But I was playing it off like I remembered things. And the story that he told me was that he told me that he was leaving the bar. I said that I was going to go as well. And he invited me to come to his place. He said that we then went to his restaurant to pick up some things. And while we were there, we started making out. I guess took my bra off, or maybe he did. I don't know. He told me that I did. And that his brother came in and yelled at him because he had left the door open to the restaurant. He said that his plan was just to stop in the restaurant to grab a couple of his things and then we were going to go to his house. He said that I came on to him and that we started making out and that that's why we ended up with the door open and his brother comes in and he's yelling at us. So then it was this conversation around why his brother was upset with him. And it became clear through all of this that him and his brother didn't have a super strong relationship. They were business partners, but they weren't like super close. And there was a lot of tension and animosity between them. I don't know if it's because his brother knew what he was doing. I don't know. The most logical explanation is that his brother is who drugged me because he was the one who gave me the drinks. I don't know, but that's what logically makes sense in terms of the first night. And I don't know if maybe his brother walked in and saw us, and maybe his brother was trying to drug me and rape me that night and take me home. And then he was upset because I ended up with his brother. I don't know. That would maybe make logical sense to like that's the most logical explanation to my mind without being able to ask either of them because his brother had shown interest in me first and I had kind of been ha 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 friends. Nothing happened at all. And I don't know if his brother was wounded that he was the one that ended up with me. And so then it was this secret that we were not letting anyone know. One, because I was with my ex-partner and my children, and I didn't really want it known to them what I was doing, and he didn't want his brother knowing that we were continuing to see each other, because his brother and him were had animosity and were at odds, and maybe his brother was kind of wounded that he got the girl, kind of thing. And so we were very secretive about the fact that we were seeing each other, which worked out great for him. We continued to text for many days. He would ask for pictures of my bruises constantly. He would beg to see them, have me send the photos until I did. Again, I thought that he was asking for them because of care, because I said I was in so much pain. And oh my gosh, you bruised me so bad. And I confronted him about it. He was good at making it seem like it was from care or concern. But then simultaneously, he would minimize, he would call me a crybaby. I think I remember even saying, I have a really high pain tolerance. I gave birth to two humans without medication at home, and this hurts really bad. He just would minimize and deflect. And he said, oh, the I gave birth card, and oh, you're such a crybaby. And it was all under the guise of playful joking. And so I, again, protective mechanism, I just kind of bantered back, but I kept confronting him about it. No, I'm in a lot of pain. And so then we would have this playful banter about it. I just was like, and then he would ask for pictures of the bruises. Then he would say that the pictures were hot. And I said, you're a sadist. And he would say, your thigh is hot. Picture of a bruise on my thigh. Your thigh is hot. He had this way of manipulating the narrative. Looking back at some of the texts, I could see even really way more subtle ways that a lot of manipulation and a lot of coercion. He would play victim with things. For instance, he'd say things like, just tell me you don't want to see me. I was like, I'm with my kid. He would say, I want to see you. And I can't today. Just tell me you don't want to see me. And then I'd be like, whatever, it's not that. Like it was very mind fucking, like a mind fuck. And I just kind of have to give myself a lot of compassion and grace for the fact that all of my responses are my inability to see what he was doing, what he was saying, as what they were at the time, was fully blinded by me just trying to stay alive. And I understand that.
Well, this is where we were originally going, is that trauma bond, but you not acknowledging to your therapist, to yourself, yeah, this could kill me. He could murder me. There was no connection. And so,
Not even the slightest.
and so I think what you're talking about here is even more reflective of that situation, that you didn't realize how serious of a situation this was, because your mind doesn't want to acknowledge that you're in danger. It doesn't want to acknowledge the harm that you could face, because that's part of staying alive. But it also is a dichotomy there, that the brain doesn't want to recognize it, yet its main purpose is to keep you alive. And in that situation, the survival aspect of it is, don't let him know too much that you don't want to be with him. And don't say what he's saying to say to him. Just tell me you don't want to be with me. Now, I'm not going to say that, because that could really tick you off. But I don't know that you made that cognitive tie.
No, not at all.
Yeah. And I think that where I'm going with all of this is something that you haven't used this word at all, but I think there's a lot of fear incorporated into all of this. I want to get back to that word once you get to the point where you say, okay, I'm done. That's my story. Because I think there's a lot of analysis that can be done in terms of understanding why that trauma bond occurred, and how trauma bond works, and what the mechanisms are that keep you there. Because it's more than just this simple word of using trauma bond. There's understanding how the mechanism of trauma bond works. And I want to get back to that once we're all ready to do that.
I would love that. I would love your perspective and area of expertise and view on all of it. It's wild because there was so many things that he said. I have text messages, like text proof of things that he said that honestly were helpful after I did get away, to look back and go, holy shit, like I couldn't see this for what it was. at the time, but he said he liked a little violence during sex. Who wants to be romantic? He said, I'll bruise you everywhere. I'll make a tattoo out of you. He said, my bruises are with care and to make you happy. I'll keep bruising you as long as you want me to. My bruises are with care and to make you happy. So he just had this way of manipulating it into making me think that I wanted that. I guess this is personal, but I have had a little playfully rough sex. That can be fun, right? But I have never had where I'm covered in bruises. That made sense to my brain at the time. And that was easier to believe. All of it, I just was like, oh, yeah. And again, things that just hard pill to swallow to look at my messages to him of saying, yes, do whatever you want. Yes, fine. That took time to just, like we were talking about before, just move myself out of the self blame and the shame around it and recognize that it wasn't me responding that way. It was my brain and body in that trauma bond and in survival of just stay alive, Hannah. What happened towards the end was that it was the father of my kids had come back from Guatemala. We continued to kind of see each other secretively, basically. And then the plan before all of this was that he had spent the time in Guatemala solo. I was with the kids. And then he was going to take the kids to Puerto Escondido, which is a beach town about 3 hours away in Oaxaca State, 3 hours away from Oaxaca City. He was going to have them for a little bit and give me a week to myself before I took the kids to my mom's for the holidays. That had been the plan prior. He had come back. We had a little time, all four of us in Oaxaca City. And then he left with the kids to Puerto Escondido. At that point, it was just me. I really love my alone time. And so my original thought was that I was going to take that time, do some solo things. What I ended up doing was essentially I spent every day, he worked at his restaurant, and then at night he would pick me up and I would go to his house and I'd spend every night with him. Again, TMI, but it's important to mention how much my body was communicating with me. I had the worst diarrhea of my entire life for an entire week. I think I probably was having some of those warning signs before. Couldn't tell you, but it was that week when I was alone and I was spending every day with him. I couldn't keep anything down. Basically, spent all day at home, going to the toilet every 5-10 minutes. It was the most, oh my God, like the worst. It was the absolute worst. It was painful. I couldn't go anywhere. I was just on the toilet all day. I was eating sourdough bread with olive oil and salt and plain yogurt and papaya for a week. It was all I could get down. I told myself, you just ate something weird for a whole week. My body was talking to me. My body was like screaming at me to get away. We're not safe. We're not okay. Our belly is our gut, is our power source. I had signs being shown to me, but I didn't know how to see them then. For a whole week, I just was living in this really bizarre haze, probably getting drugged regularly, having sex with him, and sitting on the toilet all day, covered in bruises and in pain. Um, the other thing that I didn't mention that I think is another layer of not surprising, because I mean, how many people put a condom on when they're raping someone? But I didn't know anything that happened that first night. The first time that we got together, quote unquote, consensually, when I met him that morning, I asked him for a condom and he said, oh, I don't have one. And I kind of had a feeling. He said, did you not use a condom the other day? And he said, no. And he said, he is 45 years old. And so he mentioned something about his generation. He would always make these comments. Oh, millennials. I'm a millennial. I'm 38. He goes, oh, millennials. We don't wear condoms. We don't do that. I was upset. I was like, what the fuck? You didn't wear a condom? What the fuck? But again, that apathy played in. And I just thought, well, you did it already without a condom. And it was sort of this fuck it attitude. I was just like, whatever. I agreed to having sex without a condom. because I just thought, well, you already did it. I continued to see him, spend every night with him. I was so exhausted. I was not sleeping at all because I would stay up, wait till he got off work at like 10, 11 o'clock at night, and then go to his house and stay up till whatever hour, sometimes all night, having sex with him, maybe sleep in a little bit, and then he would leave for work and I'd usually walk myself home in the morning. I remember I was very apathetic. There's this dullness in me. I didn't care. The apathy was heavy, the indifference. There was just this dullness. There was no, I'm a very like bubbly, sparkly person typically, and I was very dull and I felt horrible. I got to get home so I can go to the bathroom. So I'm like rushing to get home so I can just go then sit on the toilet for the rest of the day. I wrote in my journal during that time, I said something like, the sex isn't good. I'm not even that attracted to him. I really just thought, well, it's just a casual fling. I remember trying to look at him from different angles so I could see him from an angle that I was attracted to. And I'd be like, oh, he's like kind of handsome when I look at it, when I see him from that angle. I wasn't attracted to him. And I think prior to that, because he and his brother had both shown some level of flirtation or interest, his brother was a little more obvious about it initially. And then he kind of dropped it after he could tell that it wasn't reciprocated. When C showed it, he was a little more hard to read about it, but he was also a photographer. So him and his brother opened this restaurant as like kind of I think like a bit of a passion project. His brother is historically a lawyer. He is a photographer. He was like I think a pretty big photographer in Mexico, at least so it seemed, like models and bands and things like that. He would do a lot of that type of photography. And so I knew that he was a photographer, and this is before the assault, he randomly mentions, Hannah, I saw your Facebook and we should do some headshots for you. You don't have very good, like updated photos on your Facebook. And I thought, that's interesting. We are not connected on social media at all. How do you know that? I use Instagram for my business, or I used to use Facebook, then Facebook and Instagram. Then I kind of moved primarily to Instagram for my business. And so he was right. My Facebook photo was probably obvious. My hair was longer and I have short hair now. And so he said something of like, you need an updated headshot. You need better brand photos, essentially. He was, let's set up a time and we'll take some photos. And I remember thinking then, is he saying this as a friend, just offer, or is this his way of coming on to me? And I just, again, as many women know, you kind of just like with things like that, you keep your side friendly, even if they are maybe coming on to you. It's like you just kind of keep your side friendly. And I'm like, oh yeah, that could be fun. And thanks, that's a really nice offer. But I also thought, well, it's really, really weird that, like, how did you find my Facebook? He later told me that there's a lot of Facebook groups that are specific to Oaxaca. And so I had posted in there when we first arrived to look for a place, rentals. And apparently he saw that post in the Oaxaca Facebook group, and that's how he connected to me, whatever. We were texting about something, and I kind of playfully said that he mentioned, oh yeah, you kind of came on to me. Oh, because he kept saying, well, you started it. And I was like, no, I didn't. You definitely did. And he was like, no, you, like, if you'd remembered the night, then you would know you started it. You came on to me, not the other way around. So he did this thing where he mixed, I wanted to take you home, but you came on to me. And then he would text me things, I want to see you. When can I see you? And I thought he's being forward and clear about the fact, he's clear about his interest in me. I thought, well, that's refreshing. A lot, he's not playing games, is kind of how my mind, I was like, oh, he's not playing games. He's making it clear. I want to see you. He was very matter of fact about it. And so I was, oh, yeah, like, cool. But I said something about him mentioning the photos. It was again in this playful way. And he says he did this whole flipping the narrative where he's, it's not like I was asking to take nude photos of you. And oh my gosh, you're calling me like unprofessional and I would never do that. And what do you mean? It wasn't that. I was just, he was like, you're questioning my professionalism. And I was like, I'm playing with, like, I'm joking with you. Another one of those where he just twists and manipulate and kind of make it seem this whole other thing. He was very coercive, very manipulative. So, what had happened with this timeline was that I have been seeing my therapist since August of 2024. So, we have a very established relationship and she knows me really well. There was, I think, Thanksgiving. So, I saw her on a Thursday. The assault happened on a Saturday. And I didn't see her for, I didn't have two sessions. I didn't see her for 2 weeks because I think there was Thanksgiving and then there was travel timing scheduling conflict. When I saw her again on the third week, she said that, she told me this later, that she immediately noticed. I mean, when she told me this, she had tears in her eyes and she said, "You look so disheveled, Hannah. Your hair was greasy and you looked like there was this," she could see this dullness in me. I looked unkempt. I was not taking care of myself. That's not how she's always known me to be. So we get on the call and I'm kind of just catching her up on the last couple of weeks. I don't mention anything of this. We're talking about other things. We're talking about conversation, some of the conversation stuff with my kid's dad. And I tell her I feel like a really terrible mom. I tell her about this night and how I didn't come home and I just felt like such a terrible mom. And I was feeling a lot of guilt and a lot of shame. It was at the very end of our call. And so I'm telling her about this. And then I say, I guess I'm kind of just dating this guy. I'm like, I'm just having this fling with this guy. And she was like, wait, what? You're still seeing this person? And of obviously her listening to me sharing this thing, she's like, holy shit, she was raped. She was drugged. She was raped. Like she knew exactly what had happened. And I'm telling her, la da 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 da, I'm just a shitty mom. And I'm dating this guy. She's like, what the fuck? At that point, I think it took maybe like a week or two into the initial assault where I had a conversation with my mom. It was similar. I feel like such a terrible mom. Here's what happened. I left my kid, da, 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 da. And she's, Hannah, it sounds like you were drugged. And I said, really? Because I feel like I had that thought, but I wasn't sure. And she's like, really sounds like you were drugged. And I was like, okay, yeah, maybe you're right. And so then I was processing, okay, I think I was drugged. But at that point, it was impossible in my mind that he or his brother had drugged me. I thought of every other thing. I was like, oh, someone slipped something into the drink while he was passing it to me, whatever. Like, I remember telling my friend in Oaxaca, she had been gone, she came back. I'm like seeing this guy and I'm telling her, like, yeah, I think I was drugged this night and la da 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 da. She goes, but Hannah, why would someone drug you and not reap the benefits of what they're trying to do? I was like, yeah, good point. But still, it wasn't them. Like, it just, my brain was just like, yeah, but it couldn't be them. It was impossible to my mind that either of them had drugged me. I was still completely not even thinking of the possibility of being raped. This conversation with my therapist, and she's like, what do you mean you're still seeing this person? And I didn't even tell her that I had bruises on me. I didn't tell her that it was violent at that point. I just like, yeah, I'm just dating this guy, la di da. She said, I could see the fear and the concern in her face. It was very clear to me that it was obvious her concern. And she's going, Hannah, I think I asked her, I was like, so you think I shouldn't keep seeing him? And she's like, I am definitely saying you should not keep. She's like, you need to get away from this person. You need to not go see him anymore and do not continue to see him. I trusted her very deeply. And so I took what she said into consideration. I acknowledged and noticed how fearful her face looked. And my mind thought, she's being a bit dramatic, but okay. She had another call coming right after, and she was just kind of like, I just dropped this bomb. And so she's like, Hannah, you need to call your mom and you need to talk to her and you need to tell her what you need to tell her. And I was like, okay. I get off the phone with her and I'm thinking, I'm still going to go see him tonight. But yeah, you seem concerned. Huh, interesting. And okay, yeah, I'll call my mom. I call my mom. I tell her, I hadn't told her all the details. I told her that I thought I was drugged. I didn't tell her I was still seeing this man. So then I tell her that I was continuing to see this man. We talked for probably an hour or so. And she was saying the same thing as my therapist, but in a lot more fear. Like my therapist was gentle, treading lightly. She could tell that like I was not at all present. So she was kind of just like very gently planting little seeds for me to go, how is she going to respond to this? Is this going to register for her? My mom was a lot more fierce mama bear and was essentially just like, what the fuck, Hannah? You need to get like, what? She's like, so concerned. Hannah, you need to not see this person again. And I will not lie, it took convincing. It took the conversation with my therapist and a very long conversation with my mom. And it took probably the 90% of the conversation with my mom before I was willing to say, okay, I will not see him tonight, at least. I was like, okay, fine. Because she was like, if you go see him again, I need you to text me and I need you to tell me that you're going to see this person. And she's like, she was all the ways that she possibly could, trying to get me to understand and to comprehend something to just shock me back into life. For the majority of that conversation, I was, well, I trust both of them completely. And so I will acknowledge that they are seeming very deeply concerned for my safety and well being. And that's interesting. However, I think that they're both being very dramatic. I still had every intention to go and see him that night until my mom convinced me at the very end of the conversation. And she finally was, I was like, okay. At that point, I will agree to not see him tonight. I could use some rest. I am pissing out my butt. I would like to just maybe sleep. And sure, that's fine. I think because that night, the night before was the first night. It was interesting. I would not like, my belly would not be okay all day. And then I would go to his house and I wouldn't have to go to the bathroom and I would just have hours of sex and whatever. The last day that I went to his house, I woke up in the middle of the night and I had to go to the bathroom. I was, again, embarrassed. I was like, I don't want him to hear me having diarrhea. And I was like, well, this is embarrassing. And I don't want, And then the next morning, he had already left. And I couldn't leave his house for a little bit because my stomach was so not okay. So I'm like at his house trying to get myself well enough to just get to my house. Honestly, that was the thing that could convince me enough. I was like, yeah, I could. I'm really tired. I have not slept at all really in the last week. My belly just seems to be getting worse, so it might be good to like spend tonight at home so I don't have to worry about having to go to the bathroom at his house again. Whatever it takes, I suppose. I thought, because my mom has had her own stories of rape, violence, abuse, and I just thought my mom's being dramatic because it's triggering her stuff. And I'm her daughter. And so she's extra concerned, but she's just being a bit dramatic. They convinced me enough. I stayed home. I got off the phone with her and I just started to let it settle and process. Had it not been people that I deeply trusted, I wouldn't. I trust them so much, both of them. Even then, it was hard to believe. That was enough for me to go, okay, even if I think that they're being dramatic, why are they so afraid? Why do they look so afraid for like I could feel from them, they were afraid for my life. My mom was saying things like, essentially, without saying the words, essentially saying, like, your life is at risk, Hannah. And I was just, you're crazy. It was enough to let my brain start to slowly digest and go, And so I went back into my place because I had been sitting outside talking to them. I went back into my place and I went and I started looking at our text messages. And I scrolled all the way back to the beginning having the awareness of their concern it almost felt like just this one drop of awareness. It was so subtle, but it was just a little bit for me to see. I started reading the messages again from the perspective of, if they're so concerned about my safety and well being, why? And then I started going, oh shit, these are very disturbing. Oh, like it was like little bells going off, going, oh, I didn't recognize them. I couldn't clock them as anything initially. But once I had that little awareness, I started looking through them and seeing them as what they actually were. And so I just told him I was tired and I needed to get rest that night, to just buy myself the evening. And then the next morning I slept, which was helpful. And I was kind of, I don't know what to do now. And both of them were saying, you need to go. You need to get away from this person. And so I thought, I knew who his ex girlfriend was because she worked at a mescaleria around the corner and it had come up, whatever. So I wanted to contact her. I was trying to like grab a hold of anything I could. And so I suddenly was like, I want to go find her and talk to her. And maybe she has answers. Maybe she can confirm that like he's a bad guy, and that would help me to process that this is whatever. That night that I didn't go see him, I started texting my therapist and my mom. And I was like, okay, I'm beginning to process this. I'm beginning to see this. And that was when I asked her, would this be classified as rape? And she was like, yes, this would absolutely be rape. Then I went into, how could I have not seen this? All the shame, all the piece by piece trying to make sense of it. Then I wanted to go and see his ex because I thought maybe I could get some answers. Ultimately, I was pretty heavily advised to just go, to just get away. At that point, that next day, it had become clear enough to me that I was so dissociated and I was so deeply in a very acute trauma response that I realized I could not trust my own judgment. I could not trust my own thoughts. I could not trust my own feelings, my beliefs. And I told them, I said, I recognize I can't trust myself. Whatever is happening for me, I am not seeing things clearly. I'm not seeing the truth for what it is. And I trust you both. So I'm going to just listen to whatever you tell me to do. And I just kind of handed all of my power and autonomy to them. I just was like, I trust you. Tell me what to do. And they were giving me step by step directions, like pack up your shit, get away, go. And my kids and their dad were 3 hours away. You could get there by, like, they have like multiple shuttle buses that go. And so they were kind of saying, go be with your family. And I called my ex, the father of my kids. I said, can you get me a ticket to Puerto Escondido today? He could tell something was wrong in my voice. And I just said, he was like, what is happening? I said, I'll explain everything when I see you. And he got me a ticket. It felt impossible. It felt so hard to just, I mean, granted, we had been living there for a few months. So it was a bit of a undertaking to pack up everything in a few hours, but they were just kind of step by step, just going, Hannah, you could do this and pack up your things. And I packed everything up in a handful of hours and I left that night. I arrived to them in the evening. My kid's dad picked me up at the bus stop. And I had asked my therapist if she would facilitate the conversation and tell him what happened. I didn't even know, I didn't have words or language or really know I didn't know how to explain it. I hadn't even really processed. I probably couldn't have said that I was raped or any of that yet. And so I knew I needed her help, but I also knew I needed her help because I knew that he was going to blame me and not understand and need some guidance on how to respond to this. I knew that once it was explained to him, he would be helpful and that he would, I knew despite all the things, no matter what I'm the mother of his children. He would bury a body for me. You know what I mean? Like I knew that I could at least count on him to be a safe place with a little education and knowledge. And so I think I arrived there late at night. It was probably like 10 o'clock when I got there, and she told him everything. And she advised him on what to do and how to respond and what I needed and whatnot. He didn't respond great at first. He did victim blame a bit. He did react, and she got pretty like fierce and direct with him. And she just was, listen, you need to stop. This is what Hannah needs. This is what you need to do to support her. This is like she just was very clear, very direct, and no bullshit, which he was like, okay, because he was angry and he was hurt and he was blaming himself, all the things. All of it was step by step direction. I said, okay, well, he's still texting me. What do I do now? And she says, you need to block him. You need to cut all contact with him. I felt at the time like that's a little extreme. I thought I should explain something to him. I thought, and she's like, I was riddled with questions. I had so many questions. I wanted to ask him questions. I wanted to ask him. It took me time to like really it was like this incessant nagging itch that I couldn't scratch. So many questions. I constantly telling her, I have so many questions. I just want to text him and ask him these questions. And she's, Hannah, you're never going to get an answer from him that is what you need, what is true. I landed in Puerto Escondido and back with my kids, and so much to say about everything that came after that. I know I've been telling the story for so long at this point, but that was me finally getting away. There was a lot of stuff that came after that, a lot of unraveling, a lot of processing. I will say that that feeling, the sensation of the trauma bond, did not go away for a long time. The most accurate way I could describe the feeling was this intoxicating pull and draw to him that I couldn't explain. I was not attracted to him. He was a terrible kisser. The sex wasn't good. He wasn't that interesting of a person. There was nothing I could tell you, ooh, I'm attracted to this person. I'm interested. I'm compelled by this person. And yet I just had this pull. It was so intoxicating. And I thankfully have not struggled with addiction in my life. I have a lot of addicts in my life around me, but I feel like I've related it to what I imagine addiction might feel like. Because even when I knew that this person drugged and raped you, this person could have killed you, this person is unsafe, this person is dangerous, I still felt a pull to him. And I imagine that's probably how drugs feel and how addiction feels. It's like, it's not good for you, and yet you can't stop. I will say that I appreciate how willing and open you are and receptive. There is a big piece for me around taking up too much space and talking too much. And so I'm saying that that's the piece that I worry about. It's just like, oh, I've been talking too much.
It's going to be in very deep ways therapeutic for others to hear this. This is important stuff. I want to get this out there. I want you to take care of yourself. Yeah. So we need to put you in a different mindset. How will you take care of yourself? Do you have that immediate backup that you need? I've got to make a call. I can't handle this. I need to talk to somebody.
Yes, I'm very resourced.
Okay.
And I absolutely have my mom, also my therapist.
Hannah, what are you going to do when we hang up? What are your coping mechanisms for the immediate, oh, wow, I really am feeling this?
Yes, I take beach walks a lot. If I can do one today, I absolutely will. I've got to go be with my kids. So I'm going to go hang with them. And that always helps me feel joy and presence and in the present moment, pleasure.
Do you have a plan? What are you going to do with them?
Yeah, my son actually is in a tournament this weekend. And so he has practice this afternoon. Yes, my plans are to be with my kids. We're going to be at the park. I will definitely intend and try to have a beach walk today. And if I don't get that in, then I'll probably do some kind of physical somatic movement.
You know all the right things to do. And I'm hearing that.
I do.
And my final word to you is going to be, you already know this, helping other people is one of the best ways to help yourself. So knowing that you've got good plans ahead of you is very reassuring to me.
Yeah.
Do take care of yourself, and I'll be in touch. Does that sound all right?
Sounds good. Yes.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. See you later.
Bye.
That does it for another episode of Sexual Assault Survivor Stories, the SAS podcast. As I close this third and final episode, I want to thank Hannah King for trusting me and all of you with so much of herself. Hannah's story reminds us that rape has its consequences and can reach into relationships, parenthood, identity, memory, and the body itself. Survival is not always triumphant or easily recognized. Sometimes it is lonely, uncertain, and nothing more dramatic than choosing not to abandon yourself. Hannah, thank you for your honesty, your vulnerability, and the courage it took to share your story while you're still living through much of it. You're not defined by what someone chose to do to you. Your story is still being written, and the next pages belong to you. To everyone who listened to all 3 parts of this series, thank you for staying with Hannah. Please share this series with someone who needs to know that healing has no deadline and that a survivor's voice matters long before every wound is healed. It's all about the ongoing effort of this podcast to normalize the conversation around rape and sexual assault, to help reduce the prevalence rate, and to rid our society of rape culture. And remember to do your part in your own community to help bring justice to victims and survivors of rape and sexual assault. A great way to do this is to start by believing, because we all know someone whose life has been impacted by rape or sexual assault. We'll see you next week.